If you're looking to get started building AI agents without spending big monthly fees, then this video is for you. Today, I'm going to show you how to get set up with n8n, which is a free open source agent building tool, which will allow you to build amazing AI agents without having to spend any money at all. So we'll get that set up, and then I'm going to teach you how to make your first connections. Every AI agent has to be connected to the world, and it has to be able to influence the world. And so we're going to connect to a Google Sheet to be able to receive information from the world. And then we're going to connect it to Gmail to be able to push emails out into the world. In the middle, we're going to need a connection to a large language model. So we're going to connect to Groq, which is a free large language model service that is a great add-on if you're trying to build low-cost AI agents. For your first connection, you want to set up a Google Sheet in Google Drive. So figure out a little empty location to put this, and then we're going to go to New, and we'll say New Google Sheet. And that Google Sheet, I'm going to call it Emailer, just because that's what this thing does. So I want to send an email to myself. So I'm going to say to, and this is just really to show you how the connections work. You wouldn't necessarily do this exactly like this in a real world scenario, but this is a very common kind of flow of taking data from a Google Sheet or a database and then turning it into something like an email or a chat message. So I'm going to email this to myself, and then we're going to give it a message will be your first AI agent email. And I think that's all we need for this. In today's video, I'm going to show you the Docker installation method for getting n8n running locally on your machine. Docker is a great way to run stuff that you can quickly clean up, and it prevents you from having to install a bunch of things other than Docker, which is kind of a big program. You can go to the n8n docs and go to installation in Docker. npm is another option. Docker gives you a little bit more kind of depth and wiggle room to play with it locally before you really have to upgrade. First, you'll come here to docker.com. You just need to come here and click download Docker desktop, go through the installations process, and you'll get Docker installed, and then I'll take you to the next step after that. And once you have Docker installed, then you're going to come down here, starting n8n, and we're going to do this Docker volume create, and then Docker volume run. We're going to put both of these together, so you just have to copy to clipboard, and then you need to open your terminal application. So if you're on Windows, that could be command prompt. If you're on Mac, you could use iTerm or the built-in terminal. I'll use the built-in terminal just to be as standard as possible. We're going to run these two, and then we're going to open it here at localhost 5678, and then I'll show you how to build that first AI agent. You're going to paste this in, and you can paste both commands at once. It's going to create the Docker volume, and then it's going to do this Docker run it, and it's going to delete the container afterwards, and it's going to, most importantly, expose it on this port 5678. That's going to allow you to get into this container and look at it on your local browser. So we'll hit run. It's going to first create this volume, then it's going to set up n8n, and it's super fast actually. And now it says editor is accessible. So you're going to copy this, and you're going to go into your browser. And then you get this screen where you can set up an owner account. So fill this out. Once you're inside of n8n, you're going to get this customize n8n screen to you. This is just helping them suggest workflows. It honestly doesn't matter that much. So I'm going to just click get started. And then you can ask for this free license key. Might as well. You get it every installation. So enter your email and then click send me a free license key. They're going to email you. You get it from there. And then they're going to give you this little thing here where you head over to usage and plan. And you're just drop it right in there, enter your activation key, and then we'll get started with this first workflow. I put in my license key. I'm going to go back here on settings, and then I've got to this home screen. So you can, of course, test a ready to go AI agent. In this video, I want to walk you through the steps of getting one going because we want to get our hands dirty and feel what it feels like to make this agent do something. If you can get something working, you suddenly get this epiphany of how things work. So I highly suggest that you start from scratch and force yourself to understand this. So we're going to start with this first step, and you need to add a trigger. It automatically knows that you need a trigger. So every workflow in n8n, it starts with a trigger. This is because AI agents, the official definition of AI agents is that you need to have an input from the outside world that comes into the agent. The agent needs to be able to use AI technology to make a decision, AI methods, and that's a big category what that could be. And then it needs to act upon the external world. And that's the classical definition of an AI agent. So we have to have a trigger so it can receive input from the outside world. You can do trigger manually, but in here, we're going to show you how to take information, put it into Google Sheets, and then email yourself from Google Sheets. So we're going to connect to Sheets. Then you have 3 different triggers you can take. You can take on row added, row updated, row added or updated. In our case, we just went row added. And this is one of the more tricky parts of this setup. You have to create a credential. So you click here, and it's going to take you through it. It's not hard, it's just involved. So they're going to say, need help filling out these fields. If you get stuck, open the docs and walk through it. But here's the key that you need to watch for. You're using this OAuth flow. If you don't know what OAuth is, it's just a way to connect with outside services like Google and say, hey, I'm trustworthy. And then when users, you've done this a million times, you sign into Canva or you sign into some other program on the internet and you sign in with Google, that's using the OAuth flow. So we have 3 things that are important here that we have to collect. I should say it this way. We have 2 we need to collect, and in order to collect these, we have to give this first one. So we need a client ID and client secret. In order to do that, we're going to go into the Google Cloud Console. The Google Cloud Console will have a link in the description below this video, so don't worry about that too much. When you get in there, if you get lost ever, just search API, and what you want is APIs and services. This gives you this set of, number 1, what are the APIs that are currently enabled? And so in our case, we need Google Sheets, Google Drive, and Gmail. So for example, to enable Gmail, you're going to go into here, APIs and services, and you're just going to search for Gmail. We'll do the Gmail API. You come in here, and you're basically saying, for this account, now I've got to make the jump account that I created in Google Cloud. You'll have to create your own project. You can go new project, and Google will take you through that whole process. So you're saying, hey, for my Google account in Google Cloud, I want to start interacting with Google services. Now this is different for every company, but it's always easy to figure out if you're just willing to dig through some docs. So in this case, we're going to say, well, it's already API enabled apparently. So normally you're going to have a button here that says enable this one, and then you will be able to go from there. So apparently I already enabled this one, and now you can go back to enabled, and you can see we've got Google Sheets. If we come down here, here's the Gmail API, which is enabled. And so we're good to go on this piece. You have to remember to do this. You're going to get errors and you're not going to remember where they're coming from. Now, after you do that, you want to go to credentials. And this is the place where we get these pieces of information. So we're looking for a client ID and a client secret. To get those, you need to create an OAuth 2.0 client ID. So we'll go up to create credentials, and we're going to create an OAuth client ID. Our application type is web application because we're doing this through the browser. And you can call it something that will help you remember what this is. So we'll call this n8n first agent Google Sheets ID, something like that. And then here's the most important thing that you've got to do is add URI. What this is saying to Google is that after a user goes and provides all this information saying, hey, yes, I authorize this n8n app to use my login, Google is going to generate this special secret token or key. And that key is going to be passed back through the browser to this redirect URL. This redirect URL is controlled by n8n. It's actually going to be on your local host because we didn't use a tunnel, which I'm not going to go into tunnels. You don't need it for today's lesson. So you click to copy this OAuth redirect URL. You come back in here and you drop this in. Now you hit create and you're going to get a new client. They're going to give you conveniently a client ID and client secret. That's exactly what we need. So we're going to copy that. We'll come in here and we drop off the client ID and then we come and get the client secret. Put that in. Now we get the special button sign in with Google. This is how we get the special token that we need. So we say sign in, and I'm going to have this off the screen slightly so that you don't see all of my Google accounts, but you're very familiar with this sign in screen. It says choose an account you want to use, and it's the same thing that you've done to sign into lots of other apps. Now it is going to say, hey, Google hasn't verified this app, so you get something like that. And you're going to go down here to advanced, and you're going to say go to make. Now, the reason why it says go to make is due to this thing up here, make the jump. That's what I called it. So that's the project. And so that's why it's calling it make. You're going to click unsafe, and then it's going to say, hey, do you want to give it access? In my case, I had already given this one access. And so it's saying, okay, you already have given it access, and I hit continue. In yours, you're going to have to click a checkbox and a few other things to get it going. But you're already familiar with these screens, so I won't go to that too much. You hit continue, and then it says connection successful. So that special token got passed back to n8n, and n8n has stored it, and we now have access. And I'll show you what that access looks like here in just a minute. So we're saved. We can close it. Now we have a credential. So you could always create a new credential if you need it, but in this case, we have a credential. I should point out that I'm not going to leave these credentials sitting around after I release this YouTube video, so don't worry about the security on that issue. We're going to do poll times of every minute. In a real world scenario, you have to look at, in some cases, you might want to actually trigger on a web hook or something like that. But for our case, we're just kind of showing the flow. So we'll let the trigger be kind of like just every minute, it's fine. Now we go to document. You can choose from list, by URL, by ID. If you don't know exactly what the URL or ID is, just open this up. And this is the crazy thing. Look, there's this emailer Google Sheet that I created. And then it knows then that it only has one worksheet called sheet 1, which is the default. And you notice it says fetch test event. So it's connected into Google. So now n8n is connecting and talking to my Google already. So I hit fetch test event, and it's fetching it, and it grabs my email, and then it has a message, your first AI agent email. So I am connected in to Google Sheets already. Then I'm going to go back to Canvas, and we have our trigger. Now we need to do something with that trigger. So we'll move this over here. And we could do a couple of things. If you wanted to do it super, super simple and just look at connections, we could take this trigger and directly email whatever is in the Google Sheet. But I want to show you something a little bit more complex. I want to put a little simple AI agent in the middle of this workflow, and you can see how AI agents fit in from n8n. So you're going to click plus. You're going to go to advanced AI. You notice there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. n8n is really, it's a programmer's paradise in low code. So you can go to advanced AI, and we're just going to do an AI agent. A lot of stuff that you could do. Some of these are more kind of simple chunks, but this is going to allow us to generate an action plan. This is what most people mean by AI agent. So the definition I gave before was kind of the classical, this whole workflow is technically an AI agent from a classical AI standpoint. But most people these days, when we say AI agent, we're talking about this piece in a workflow that has the ability to get some input and then make its own decisions. So it has like keys to like 3 different rooms in the castle, and it decides based on that large language model in the middle, which room it's going to go into. There's a bunch of different kinds of agents. And instead of going through all them in this introductory video, we're just going to go with tools agent. And then we're going to say, where do we want the source for the prompt to come from? So if you are using a chatbot and that AI agent is maybe going and searching the internet for you and giving you an answer, the connected chat trigger node would be great. But you'll notice in this workflow, we don't have a connected chat trigger node, which is why I can't click on this. It's undefined because our trigger is Google Sheets. So we have to go define below. Now watch this. I can say, just drag this in here. And now I've got the original message that came from Google Sheets. Whatever was here in the Google Sheet is going to show up in this AI agent. I could do a lot of stuff with it, but let's see. We've got this result. So it's so nice. It takes this data here that was in the sheet and it shows me what it would look like. So now I'm going to make a simple prompt. Let's give it something like this. Write a poem in the style of Longfellow about this message. All right. And then we are good to go with the prompt. We have these things down here called chat model, memory, and tool. You don't necessarily need a memory and tool if you're not doing anything extensive. A memory is important if you want this chatbot to be able to remember what it did. So as new stuff is coming through, which if you can imagine like a chat scenario, if you ask a question, you ask a second question, it's great if it can remember it. I'm not going to go into that here, but that is something that can be useful. A tool is where you would either connect to another workflow inside of n8n, or you could do something like search the internet with the SERP API, or you can connect to other services from this tool, and that would give this agent the power to do that. And it can have multiple tools, but what you do need is a chat model. In terms of chat model, there's a lot of choices, but as I said in the introduction, we're going to use Groq. You can see it's already telling you the ones it wants you to use. So you've got DeepSeek, you've got Azure OpenAI, you've got AWS, Google, all the big cloud players are in here. And then you've got the open source ones, and then of course, OpenAI. In our case, we're going to use Groq because Groq is a great service that exposes these large language models, and you can do it for free when you're in a testing mode. So here, you're going to give it a new credential. We're going to get used to creating these new credentials. The Groq one is a little bit easier because you don't have to go through the whole OAuth flow. Groq uses an API key, which is a simpler way to do it. And so we're going to say create new credential. And all you got to do is drop in this API key. You'll then go to console.groq.com, and that'll drop you into Playground. You'll click into API keys, and you're going to say create an API key. The link for this will also be in the description below the video. You can give it any kind of name. I'll call it n8n API key. And just to be really specific, so I can remember to delete this afterwards, I'll call it my first agent tutorial. I don't want you using my Groq credentials. So here we do this new API key, and I'm going to click copy. And then I'm going to go back to this workflow, and I'm going to drop it right here in API key. Boom, that's it. Save. We're connected. This is beautiful. So we've got our Groq account, and this has some good big large language models. You can go into DeepSeek, you can go into Llama. I'll use the default, just this Llama 3, 8 billion. You can use Mixtral's also a good one. And if you want to play around with that, go for it. But this is not complex, and I think we can get a decent poem out of this. So that's good enough for now. So once that's ready, we'll go back to Canvas, and we're starting to get a very cool looking workflow. So we have a chat model, and then we have a tool that the AI agent could use. So if we wanted to, I'm not going to do that for this video, but I do want to show you what you could do with it. So you could call another n8n workflow tool. You could request a website, and you could scrape all of that off. You could do custom code in JavaScript or Python, which is a beautiful feature. You can go into vector databases, which I feature in another video. And then you can do all kinds of stuff. You can go to Airtable, give it Asana access. I mean, there's just a ton of different tools here that you can see. So AI agents can be very powerful. Word of caution, don't just give them the keys to everything that you own. Try to design more workflows and rely on AI agents less, or at least be very careful about how many tools they have access to. For this video, we'll just let the AI agent only have access to a chat model, and it's not going to have access to external tools. And then the last thing that we have to do is give an output. So I'm going to say Gmail. And I'm going to say, well, I would like to send a message. Now, looky here, I have to create a new credential. Wait, I already did one for Google. What's going on? Well, Google has these separate kind of OAuth credentials for these different modules. And so sometimes, even if you already have one that is with the Google company, they've decided that you need to do them separately for each of the different services. So I'm going to say create a new credential. You can use the service account or OAuth 2. As they say, OAuth 2 is recommended. We'll go with that. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get the client ID and client secret. I'm going to come back into here. We're going to click OK. And you're going to go create credentials again. And remember that if you have not gone on in here and clicked enabled APIs and services, you need to make sure that you enable Gmail and Google Sheets and Google Drive. So after you get this one set up, you're going to come back in here, fill this out. You'll get that Google button and go through that process. I've obtained client ID, client secret. I click sign in with Google. I'm going to go through that process off screen here, and you're going to get this beautiful connection successful screen. And back here, you can see we have account connected. So we're good to go here. Click the X because we're already saved. Now we're going to send a message. So the send is going to need an email. The thing here is that I don't have any input data yet because I haven't run that agent. I created the agent, but I haven't run it. So they have this beautiful button here, execute previous nodes, so I don't have to actually exit. I can just click that, and it's going to bring through this poem. And look at this, I have a poem. This came out of that large language model. So all I said was your first AI agent email, and then I get this in Silicon Halls where data reigns, a message came with codes and stains. Beautiful. So now we're going to say 2. Well, let's grab this 2 right here and put it in 2. Wonderful. Now we're going to say subject. How about we say your first AI agent poem? And then we're going to say email type HTML and then message. Since we're using an HTML type email, I'm going to go to my favorite large language model, and I'm going to ask it to compose an HTML email for me. So I'll do that really quick, and then I'm going to, inside of that HTML template, I'm going to drop this output into it, and I'll move on to the next step. I do this kind of thing all the time where I say, give me an HTML email template. I tell it what kind of design I want, and I just give it as much information as possible. I don't need a super slow model here, so I'm going to use a quick one. You can do this with any large language model chatbot these days. They can all do it. And so you're going to get this nice email, and it creates this style for you, and you just don't have to buy anything off the internet or mess with it. So you'll come into message. You're just going to drop that right here. And that is how this works. You'll notice that this is a little bit lacking in the n8n interface. They've got this, the message is just really small. And so we're going to grab this here, and we'll drag this message right to the beginning. Let's see how this works. Oh, sorry, came to the end. And we're going to look for this piece of text. Here we go, where it says this is the area. We'll take this part out, and we'll Control X, and then we'll come in and drop it here inside of these P tags. And now we've got it. And then the recipient, I don't actually have a name, so I'm just going to say dear friend. and voila. And so we'll say it this way. We'll say this message, and then we'll put the message here. Generated the following poem. And then here, we'll give it another couple of nicely formatted print tags. And inside of these, we're going to grab this output. And now we've got this whole poem here. Look at that. And it is going to put these new line characters in between. Hopefully that formatting works when you come through to Gmail. And we can test it. So then we'll say test. And boom, it executed successfully. And it says it sent it. So let's pop open my email client and see what I got. If you think this video might be helpful to someone, would you take a moment and click like? And if you have someone specific in mind, share it with them right now. Also, if it helped you a little bit, would you click subscribe? Because I want to get more content like this to you. I want to help you become the AI hero in your organization. Here is my email client. And we got this sophisticated email header. Dear friend, this message, your first AI agent email generated the following poem. And here's the poem that was done by the large language model. Now you'll notice that the new lines were messed up. They didn't come through in this HTML email. And of course, a lot of these things were, not done very well, call to action. So you could clean this up, of course, mess with the prompt a little bit, and then you might have to add some kind of, it would be another process inside of this flow, maybe to the AI agent itself, or even just to the prompt with Groq and Llama, and say, make sure that this message is formatted as an HTML email. And there you go. You've got a working email that comes to the email address that was in the sheet and comes from my Gmail. We go back to Canvas and just look at it. You've got your first AI agent working. So you're connected to Google Sheets. You're going to an AI agent. That AI agent has access to a large language model to have its brains and make decisions. You could add other tools. You could add memory if you wanted to have it be able to remember things as it's going through multiple back and forth, like every time a new sheet is added, if it needs to remember what happened before. And then it pushes through to Gmail, and the sky's the limit. You can just keep clicking this plus button and adding new things as much as you want. Don't recommend doing that because you want to be very careful about how much these agents have access to in your system. So this is a great start. You now have a grasp of how to build an AI agent. You know how to make connections, and you're ready to start tackling real AI automation problems in your organization. If there's a video that you want to see made, some kind of content that you want to learn about AI, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to interact with you, and would love to produce videos on specific guided topics that are going to be helpful to you. So please jump in the comments and interact as much as possible. I read every one of them, and I love to see how I can help people.